The Gauss Rifle is the most powerful weapon in the Stalker series. Pretty much across the board, one shot from this gun will take out a human enemy, granted you actually aim vaguely in their general direction. So, what's so difficult about beating the game using only a Gauss Rifle? I said a few weeks ago, hoping for a quick and easy video to make. Little did I know the depths of despair my quest would take me. Let's see. S.T.A.L.K.E.R the Scarranin is a game with no Gauss Rifle whatsoever, so no, you cannot beat it using only a Gauss Rifle unless you slam the CD with an expensive replica. Stalker Shadow of Colossus first shows you one 10 minutes before the game is over, so even if you reach that point without using any other weapons, there's no chance in hell you will get enough ammo to break into the ending. Stalker 2 to Stalk the Furious has a Gauss Rifle monolith and show up somewhere around when you find a drunk Richter at the Yaniv station. And even then, you won't find much ammo for the thing ever, and Stalker 2 has mandatory combat encounters, so that might be a bust. Which leaves Stalker Call of Pripyat, where the Gauss Rifle is not only available, it's actually directly soldered into the plot. So, can you beat Call of Pripyat with the Gauss Rifle alone? Only one way to find out, as we download the Enhanced Edition and see for ourselves. Something I really appreciate about Call of Pripyat is that most guns in the game are available right at the start. A lot of them you can buy from Nimble over at Skadovsk, a few of more common ones are even hidden in pre-made stashes, and you even start out with a Kalashnikov that's very fun to toss into Anomaly if you're doing a challenge video where you're not allowed to use it. Our victim, however, hides all the way in the Call in Pripyat, and getting there is pretty much the entire plot. So, with the rule that I can't use any other weapons at play, I will have to do quite a few quests without raising a bullet. Thankfully, the main story starts out pretty simple. There's 5 helicopters that crashed into the ground across the area, we just have to visit them. Actually, we only have to visit one of them, the one with a map of evacuation points, one of which will explain to the main character that he does indeed have to actually go to Pripyat. Also, all of them have fallen into various anomalous areas, so it really doesn't help that I have no weapons, nor do I remember which one's the right one. First things first, however, I sell all my weapons to the first stalker I meet for around 2000 Soviet rubles. Money is going to be really important in this playthrough since, even when we get the rifle, we can only buy the ammo for it. So the sooner we start, the better. For the same reason, I stopped by the fire anomaly near the spot you begin the game. There's a cute encounter here where you can help a stalker that fell over in an anomaly, and this is essentially a way to convert a medkit into a stronger artifact detector than the one you start with, because they gift you one. By the way, according to the achievement you get for this, the stalker you help out here is Petrucha from the first game. I never realized that in all of my years playing this game, because last I checked, Petrucha looks like this. I mean, obviously the stalkers in this scene are just default models, but they could have at least made one of them offer me to pipe down like the original did.
Pipe down, man, let me fill you in.
Regardless, that's actually the way I'm hoping to make my riches today. Artifact hunting. Not piping down. I'm not prostituting myself. In fact, this very boiler gets me a Mama's Beads artifact, which I make sure to rub into Petrucha's face. The bear detector will only just point vaguely into the direction of the prized rock, but it's still so much nicer than the echo beeper. To that end, I immediately head to the abandoned barge with gravity anomalies around it, home of the world famous glowing radioactive wheel. You can get a quest to investigate this place from Beard at the Skadovsk ship, but much like with other quests in the game, you can complete the quest preemptively and just cash it in for the reward. The trick with this one, of course, is that after you retrieve the half-artifacted piece of junk, a stalker stops you right at the exit to ask you for the item, because it supposedly can cure his dying friend. He is of course lying, so I really weigh my chances against him and his friend hiding behind the corner, then book it for the bushes. Turns out, he has 2 friends hiding behind the corner. My bad, I severely underestimated the power of friendship. Still run away from the barge crew, mind you, just takes a few more tries. Surrendering the malformed Wii Fit to Beard unlocks the artifact hunting quest, where Beard can commission you to bring a specific artifact for a large sum of money. Which naturally, I never end up actually using. I may have forgotten about it altogether. At the very least, this returns 3000 rubles right away, some of which I then spend on vodka for radiation treatment. Figured that since we'll be curing Car down of his alcoholism today, I might as well pick up the S.T.A.L.K.E.R. Now back to the helicopters. Of the 3 that landed in the Statin Zaton area, 1 lays on the inaccessible plateau populated by snorks and corpses. But as I played this before, I do remember the exact cliff you have to jump off of to get onto the teleport anomaly that brings you to the place. You're supposed to talk to the loner called Noah to actually discover this trick, but if you just jump there on your own, it works just the same, the anomaly is already there. Degtyaryov sniffs the helicopter JPEG and actually does discover a map with evacuation locations marked on it. Whatever personnel survived the landings will be waiting at one of these spots on the map, and which one is spoiled by the title of the game. This is our canonical reason to go to Pripyat, by the way. The local guide, however, can't take us there. His pathway only goes as far as Yaniv station, and also seems to cost 3 times the amount that I remember. Turns out, the guide actually lowers the price if you bring him the maps from the helicopter. It's just not the maps that I already have. There are specific maps from a specific helicopter here in Zaton that he wants, and like hell I'm paying extra for the pleasure. So, back into the swamps we go! As if I'm not running around with 2 empty weapon slots. Luckily the zombies at the sawmill remind me that this is indeed a first-person shooter, and start shooting me, the first person. Fair enough, I did waltz into the sawmill without thinking, because I like to grab the basic tools for the local technicians from the attic early in the game. And this is also where the enhanced edition really kicked in. Because guess what? The dynamic music is apparently tuned on by default, so as soon as you get into combat, the game starts blasting you with rock. Thank you, that really punched up this epic battle of slow as hell zombies versus me with no weapons. Once I escape, I head straight for the helicopter stuck in the swamp anomaly. It's a pretty neat area with the gravity wells morphing the terrain and the surface of the swamp into physically confusing shapes. Does make it one of the easier anomalies to navigate, mind you, because you can't just see the usually invisible body crunchers a mile away. I even pulled 2 whole meat chunks artifacts out of the muck. Try not to think about whose meat chunks these are. I mean, the description says they just look like meat and are actually rocks, but you would think they form out of human bodies, right? Like, this is a guy that got crunched, it gotta be. Anyway, as far as I'm concerned, this is Gary's meat chunk. The Stalker stuck in the scientist bunker who dreams of getting to Pripyat. His contract demands 2 artifacts and the other one, the Kolobok, to stop 4 at the Oak Pine anomaly. There's pretty much a guaranteed one in the branches. In fact, the pit might spawn in a meat chunk as well, so you can beat this quest by just visiting a single anomaly once. I pulled 2 soul artifacts instead. Truly, my cup is runneth over. The swamp helicopter, by the way, is not the ticket either, which just leaves the one in the Iron Forest location. You know, that place, that's a whole massive location on Stalker 2, but is the size of a parking lot in this game. You don't even have to go into the anomalies to get to this one, or deal with the local poltergeists as it turns out. And just like that, the trip to Yaniv now costs 1000 Soviet rubles instead of 3. As a bonus, I also snatched the advanced tools from the substation with the mercenaries, since I intentionally pre-bought the 6 cans of meat from Beat for them. Sure, I remember to do that, but not which helicopter has the important stuff in it. Typical. Upon arriving to Yaniv, I immediately sell all the tools I gathered to Nitro. Devastating misplay, all things considered, but it's not like I'll ever have a gun for him to upgrade anyway, since Gauss Rifle cannot be improved. Hell, I'm still wearing the armor from the start of the game because the Sunrise suit is just that good. I then stopped by Gary, the Stalker stuck working with the scientists, and just so happened to have the 2 artifacts that would free him out of the contract. There is no immediate reward for giving him these, and he won't take me with him on the miraculously successful trip to Pripyat. So I'm just sending him first to check if there's monolith down there. My own road to that city leads through the Jupiter factory. In fact, you technically visit the place 3 separate times. Once to investigate the helicopter, once to retrieve the documents proving the path to Pripyat exists, and one more time, you get teleported there for a cutscene. So it really doesn't help that the place is kind of boring. It's a really big space with barely any enemies, that you have to move through in its entirety twice. But again, and I love this about Call of Pripyat, all the documents for the later quest are already there. You just have to know to pick them up. The only downside here is that the papers are pretty tricky to find without the mission markers leading to them. And if you return without one or two, you'll have to go the whole way back to pick them up. That's why I make sure to sift through every accessible corner of the building and of course accidentally pick up the one folder that makes the mercenaries spawn in and grind you into the worm food.
You shouldn't have come here, Stalker. Now you will be worm food.
This is a completely unrelated quest. I should not have done that. Luckily, their pathfinding corrupts the battle, and I'm able to easily walk out of the conversation by just crouching through a window on the stairway. The problem with that is that I then have to go back into the factory, and the building at the entryway is where the armed mercenaries are. They actually don't seem to mind me that much, too preoccupied searching for me to actually turn around and find them. Absolutely Bugs Bunny stuff we're pulling today. Joke's on me, I could actually use their help with the blind dogs that start chasing me around the factory. The mongrels even trick me into activating a cutscene while they're on my tail. So when it ends, and whenever I reload the autosave, the pack gets to tear me apart before I can do anything. Maybe the sunrise suit is not as good as I thought. Thankfully, this one ladder cuts off the chase, since the dogs can't climb. But the cutscene exploit repeats itself in full, when I then inspect the helicopter. Turns out, this little cinematic will always teleport Degtyaryov to this one specific spot, even if I intentionally climb the helicopter blades to hide from the mutants. I'm sure you can still do this without fighting the Psi-Dog by luring it away and then running really hard. But I personally just spam the medkit and bandage buttons at the scene reloads and luck out into the next ladder. Meanwhile, animation hits, giving me ample reason to go to the nearby concrete buff anomaly and try out that trick everyone was shouting at me about the last Call of Pripyat video. Turns out, instead of doing the parkour through the pit, the player can just follow this stretch of garbage level geometry directly to where the artifacts appear. I can't believe I missed that trick despite playing this game for over a decade. With this, there's just one helicopter left, and it's the minefield one. I don't like the minefield one. I don't even remember if it's necessary for the Pripyat trip either, but I doubt that having a Gauss Rifle will make me any less explodable, so might as well do this right now. After a few failed attempts, I decide to try and apply some common sense and jump from one landmark to another, hoping that they just didn't bury a mine under this massive boulder that they couldn't lift. And eventually that way I make it to the other side. Naturally, it's then the massive horde of pig mutants runs through the field that I always forget about and get jump scared by. Nothing in the lore explains what happens here, by the way. I guess there's just a mutant herding dog asleep at a job somewhere out there. This last helicopter returns a black box that I have to deliver to Nitro for decoding. He's supposed to be this electronics enthusiast and even has a separate quest associated with it, which I'm going to do now, because for some reason decoding the black box takes actual real-life time, and no, the plot won't move without it. Turns out the minefield helicopter is essential after all. The task concerns the future duty base at the cement factory, where Nitro is sure there should be a bunch of soldering equipment. Picking up all of the PCB boards and do that gets you the maximum discount for repairs and upgrades at Nitro's workshop. But I of course have my own ulterior motives for visiting the silos. There is actually a stash of proper Gauss rifle ammo hidden in the service tunnels below the factory, marked by the atom symbol in the chalk on the wall. That gives me a minor head start on the rare type of ammo. Also, I find a sphere helmet at the peak of the location in a completely separate and related stash. The time spent rummaging at the soldering equipment is still not enough for Nitro to unscramble the helicopter data, so I have to sit down in front of him and pretend to not be listening to Markiplier's podcast while he tinkers. But finally the cork is out, and we get to hear the military communications about how the safest place for them to evacuate to is somehow a random laundromat in Pripyat. This unlocks an option to tell Nitro that I found some documents in the Jupiter plant, which is supposed to be a reply to Nitro sending me there, but of course he doesn't send me there because I've already done everything. I like how open and versatile Call of Pripyat is, but I really do wish they added more flavor text for whenever this kind of stuff happens. As it is, They just seem to have deleted some lines of dialogue to accommodate speedrunning, and it feels really unnatural. Regardless, Nitro tells me to go get absolutely sloshed with Zulu, and so I do. Whoever that is. I have no idea why this guy has such a powerful presence in the plot. He does not show up or become relevant up until now and lives so far away from any other NPC that you will seriously just never find him until Nitro tells you to. But it is the character who joins you for the trip through the underground tunnel to Pripyat and asks you to put together a group, which I do think is the coolest part of the game. And admittedly, with me still not having any sort of a weapon on me, we will need all the help we can get. So let's see if anyone around here wants to go die in a tunnel. Well, the option to ask is present with a lot of the local characters, but only 3 actually are bored enough to go with you. The easiest perhaps is Sokolov, the helicopter pilot hiding away in the scientist bunker. He has to get to the evacuation point anyway, so you just need to grab him a closed respiratory system suit. For some reason, just bringing him one from the traders is not an option, and he simply must have the spare one from the scientist closet. Even though I wore that one in Shadow of Chernobyl, and its armor rating is ass. The mission to get in one is pretty simple anyway. Azersky will point you towards the local anomaly dump, where a unique flower has grown. Picking up that flower will make the anomalous area expand significantly and become much more difficult to navigate. But since it's all just toxic fruit punch traps, you might not even notice unless you're holding a detector that shows the anomalies visually. Really, this whole mission is just a way to trade a single shot of antidote meds for a helicopter pilot. The next victim on our arduous quest will be Vano, a local doofus with luck stat 1000, allegedly. It's thanks to that luck, I am now going to come resolve his trouble with the local bandit gang. Vano actually does have the money that he owes to Jack, the bandit Shishak, but is afraid of actually talking to the guy. So he will just give you the cash to pass to him, and you can't spend it. There is a world out there where the player just grabs the money and never completes the quest at all. A cruel and merciless world, and we must pray we never get there, but it's an option. So we arrive at the bandit outpost, parley with the boss man, and of course, he demands additional 2000 money. Without a big gun, I can't scare him into just taking the original sum, so I cough up the money. But do take a note to come back here just a smidge later for cruel and merciless reasons. With that, Vano's loyalty quest is completed, but you do have to pay him additional 5000 money so he can buy a Seva suit. Once you subtract the walk-in from the quest, I have basically bought him for 7000 cash. I don't know how I feel about that one. And of course, the final member of our Moron Brigade will be the Starved Stalker 2, former Monolithian and current amnesiac Strider. You can't find him and his squad squatting around by the bridge, in the swamp by the container pile. They're all Monolith soldiers who became brain-fogged after S.T.A.L.K.E.R shut down their main broadcasting channels in the true ending of the first game. Essentially the beginnings of the Noontiders from the second game. And little did I know, Strider is kind of a bitch to recruit. All we really have to do is introduce their little group to one of the factions, freedom or duty. Usually that's a pretty simple thing to do in this game, but of course either faction will call you an insane person unless you already have a good standing with them. And my standing currently is that I heard the word duty exactly once. To win favor and reputation with the gangs, you have to side with them on missions whenever the opportunity presents itself, like when they're fighting or something. For example, after I snatched the important documents from Jupiter and got worm-fooded, the mercenaries guarding the science bunker have all disappeared. You can ask Herman about it, and then tell Freedom or Duty to go swap in for money. I pick Freedom in hopes it will distract them from mining Bitcoin for the second game, but this isn't enough for them to actually trust me yet. Another quick task is to talk to the stalker named Flint, who keeps boasting about his accomplishments, many of which sound suspiciously similar to my accomplishments. He actually has a voice line like that, prepared for almost every major quest in the entire game, which gets extra sad when he's just standing there telling those tales and no one else is in the bar to listen. Flint is actually a traitor called Magpie, that the hunters from Skadovsk ask you to track down. Telling them about him, however, is a waste of reputation points, and besides, we gotta get some proof first. Once you talk to Flint about his lies, a dying Stalker can be found in the nearby quarry. He will tell you that Flint has stolen his artifact and left him there to die. Unfortunately, it's too late to help him now, but it is just in time to go rat on Flint to the Freedom Leader. Devastatingly, that too is not enough to convince Loki to adopt my box of monolithians. Hurt as it may, we will now have to do actual work. And do it with no guns whatsoever, which is quite tricky actually. For example, I can't do the really cool quest for the Freedomer Uncle Yar because I would have to snipe at some mercenaries and I don't actually trust him to kill them all on his own. In fact, a bit of wiki diving reveals that any further reputation is locked behind completing either the work for scientists to buy a Svarog detector from Hermit to get Colonel Shulga's PDA from the mysterious anomaly, or work for Owl and get the same detector through the shifty business questline. Either way, there's a lot of shooting to do here, and I can't do any of it. So here's the trick. What if I don't? Basically, the quest hit that the Skadovsk bandits convince you to do can't be completed for either the bandits or the Stalker sides. The bandits want to destroy a Stalker base at the Shevchenko ship ruin, but neither the bandits nor the Stalkers will actually be hostile to me until I decide which side I'm on. So I accept the mission from Sultan and Knuckle, only to get teleported to the actual hit where I just walk around, stare at them, overall remain pointless basically. This fails the task, by the way, as the Stalkers easily wipe out the bandits, but it does unlock the next quest, the transaction. Something about my behavior here really convinced Owl that I would be a great bodyguard for this one trader that he knows. The meetup I'm supposed to supervise is a deal between the bandits and a duty traitor who's been selling the faction equipment from behind the group's back. Midway through the conversation, it's interrupted by the loner Stalkers, and this time, everyone's already marked hostile without me getting to choose which side I'm on. Of course, I'm not in a position to protect my employer, and between the bandits and the Stalkers he eventually gets spread evenly across the floor. But I'm not exactly here to protect him anyway. I'm only in this mess to snatch his PDA with the information about all of his dirty dealings. So I carefully avoid getting murdered just long enough to fail the mission, search his corpse, and then hoof it for the hills. Somehow this still doesn't turn Owl away from working with me, and he does offer me a quest to deliver 3 advanced detectors to the scientist. And I do actually do this just to get a better detector myself. But I never actually need to use it on the weird anomaly, since just presenting the traitor's PDA to the Freedom Leader gets me enough reputation to finally force Strider and his whole gang into the Freedom faction. After that, it only takes like 2 sentences to convince Strider to abandon his friends and go back to Pripyat with me. This gives me the leader achievement, which is why I've been so gung-ho about getting the recruits. Now that I'm out of commission, we'll need all the help we can get, and the achievement promises that my squad will now have a higher likelihood of surviving the trip to the catacombs. And so, the whole squad is here. Vano, with his devastatingly deadly shotgun and unlimited luck. Zulu, the muscle, with an actual tank machine gun ready to cut through the hordes of enemies. Strider, with his signature sniper rifle, covering us from behind. Sokolov, who is also here. And of course, me, with apparently just my knife, holding it like a complete idiot. They made this game give you whatever weapon you're using for this animation, but never adjusted the animation to accommodate that I'm not using any weapons. So Degtyaryov is just holding a knife sticking out of his hand sideways as if he's flipping me off with it. You see, Ivan, when shooting like me, you will never run out of bullets because of gun being knife. Anyway, we enter the tunnel and my merry band folds completely almost immediately. I mean, it doesn't help that Vano's opening move is to shoot Zulu in the back, point blank with a shotgun. Obviously Zulu dies soon after, but really, the whole group goes down to the very first batch of Snorks. Repeat attempts, even on lower difficulty, don't go any better, as time after time my friends are killed very easily. And the problem, turns out, is the very achievement I worked so hard to accomplish. You see, the extra survivability of the group is not an empty promise. The game is actually coded so that once you have all of your Pokemons together, they get extra armor resistance to their stat. But for whatever reason, the armor resistance has been applied backwards, making everyone present actually much worse at survival. And I knew that this bug has been in the game since the original release. I just kind of hope that they fixed it for the enhanced edition. I just thought that maybe going into the spaghetti code and reversing a number wouldn't be that hard. Because they did revise so much of the interface and stuff, but no! The bug appears to still be in place! After a few tries, I give up on the whole thing and start running the moment the door opens. Someone from the group protests, but there appears to be no other consequence to leaving everybody behind. Outside of them dying, I mean.
Come back, bro. We don't need a scout on this mission.
Hell, I may have run out too eagerly, given that I just tanked through this gravity bubble anomaly, instead of checking the detector that has anomalies displayed on it like a normal person. The tunnel snorks actually present the least trouble, being content to just go play with the edible NPCs. The surprisingly difficult enemy here is actually the Tushkana mice. Without being able to shoot them, I can't really parse through them even with my main medkits.
Something doesn't feel right.
The big dome where the Monolithian shows up even is not that big of a deal. I just run from button to button trying to keep the line of sight to the minimum. One even politely steps away from the exit when I finally get that door open. The only place that gave me any trouble is really the tunnel filled with zombies at the very end. It's just a very straightforward area with not many spots to hide without killing the enemies first. I try to take advantage of the slower animation of raising the weapons that the zombies have compared to the regular human enemies, so they can't only really get me if I stop running. And finally, I make it to the ladder out to Pripyat, and into the cutscene where the military take me to their leader. And won't you fucking know, in the cutscene, everyone I recruited for the Pripyat trip actually shows up. Zulu is the only man missing, as I'm assuming Vano killed him again, the maniac. This one time, when I abandoned everyone and ran off on my own, they actually survived long enough for me to end the level. Unfortunately, Strider makes it very clear that he doesn't care how hard I've worked for this accomplishment.
And I don't give a rat's ass who's working.
He's supposed to say, I don't give a rat's ass who's working for whom, but they move the camera so abruptly that the audio jumps to only your left ear and is way too quiet because the NPC is way too far away for you to hear him. This edition is getting more enhanced with every minute. Now that we're in the Pripyat proper, the military takes us to their laundromat base and explains just how devastatingly screwed they are. I pretend to listen, as I ransack them for the free armor suit and whatever else they'll give me. And nevertheless, they want to go and attack the Monolith patrol passing nearby. This is going to turn sour, but that's actually exactly why we're here. Once the patrol is revealed to be an ambush, a Monolith leader begins preaching from the top of the hospital. And also covering the ground troops with Gauss Rifle fire. One of the guys that brings you here is scripted to die immediately. The rest, however, will continue to fight the Monolith troops for a little while, before most likely also getting exploded. Their overall survival chances are pretty slim, mind you, and what's worse, it's the number of surviving military troops that decides whether you get the good ending slide for Pripyat itself. Meaning, you can flub it completely on the first proper main plot mission and never even know that. In our case, however, there was never a chance that these people would come back to base. I actually have to keep reloading over and over, hoping that the crew will take out the Gauss Rifle sniper for me before they die. And from what I can tell, they really are not at all scripted to aim at him. This seems to be a planned target specifically for the player to murder, which I obviously cannot do unless he lets me hold his Gauss Rifle. So no! You cannot beat Stalker Call of Pripyat with only the Gauss Rifle. Honestly, it's shocking that you can beat this much of Call of Pripyat without a Gauss Rifle. Or killing anyone, or shooting a weapon at all. At this point, why didn't they just make the whole game pacifistable? But the question then remains, can you beat Call of Pripyat using only a Gauss Rifle after killing this guy? After all, this is a mandatory kill. We can forgive it. right? Once the preacher is done playing his dying animation, I'm once again not allowed to use any weapons but the Gauss Rifle, which is horrible since the Gauss Rifle I pick up from the body is completely ruined. That's part of the story, mind you. The weapon is a quest item, it's just the quest to fix it is now my priority number one. While my comrades are dying in the background, I leg it back to the laundromat to get permission slip to go back to Skadovsk. And just in time too, Gary is there to lead me. Even gives me a bubble artifact for helping him with the scientist contract. If only the army suit had any artifact pockets. Once back at Skadovsk, I show the broken Gasusi to Kardan, and he calls it a sexy tool.
What? 62?
Now, I'll be the judge of how sexy the tool is. Once he's back from the nap, Kardan reveals that he actually was one of the engineers at the Gauss Rifle development. Still has the keycard and everything. Also, this experience makes him quit alcohol called Turkey, which I assume is also the property of the gun, since I doubt anyone I shoot with will be doing much alcoholism after. So we grab the keycard and head to the Iron Forest Anomaly, where their testing grounds were once located. Makes sense they'd be building the electric railgun under the spot with the most electricity, I suppose. Now, there is actually an interesting bug in the game that might have prompted this entire video, where this lab becomes open from the very start of the game. Going down here and bringing the design documents back to Kardan will even make him give you a working Gauss rifle and offer to make spare ammo for it as if the mission was active. Unfortunately, this also bricks the game and locks the player out of actually completing it, so we can't actually go that route at all. Also, I really tried, but I couldn't get the bug to trigger. Otherwise, this video would be much less Undertale than it is. Regardless, I'm still in the pacifist mode, and the lab I have to get through is full of armed zombies. And as I run by them, I gotta ask, who are these guys? Some of them are wearing the sunrise suits, and there is one wearing a full exoskeleton. So they have to be a Stalker era addition, but how did they get into the sealed lab? How did they get zombified after? And why did they lock themselves in? Did they all come here to see the suited giant at the bottom? How did the suited giant get here? It's so much bigger than any of the doors. Anyway, I made it safely past the zombies. Even the one wielding a tank machine gun. What's that? Skif's pistol is OP? Knife is OP? Forget about it! Running is OP! The suited giant at the end is not a big deal either. The armor can't withstand a ground slam, and there's a ladder that you can climb, but the suited giant can't. The minor parkour leads on the other side of the blast shield, where a giant prototype version of the Gauss gun is mounted on the floor. It is unfortunately as functional as my one is, but not for long, because now I have the design plans for my gun. Snorks, get fucked! Wait, it's not fixed yet. Shit. I return to Kardan with the rifle and documents, and finally, I can shoot it. I can also buy homemade ammo from Kardan, seemingly ad infinitum, and the only issue is that it costs 2000 rubles for the set of 6. Also, the recharge time after every shot is a bit alarming, but come on, who's gonna survive the first one? Actually, who would survive getting one of these thundered into them? Let's find out! First, I want to see how a controller does against a shock therapy, and I just so happen to have a favorite one in the whole game series right here at Skadovsk. It's a hidden encounter that I honestly feel bad for spoiling for you, so spoilers for the entirety of Call of Pripyat 3, 2, 1? On the way to the burnt farmstead, there's a random crack in the ground that you might enter, and as you go through it, a booming voice rings through your head. Leave this place, man. If you press on, you hear another line. Live while you're still in one piece. And if you never played other Stalker games, you get pretty startled, as the voice seems to be coming from inside of your head. And if you played the other Stalker games, you're there shitting yourself, because you recognize it as the same voice that the monolith itself was talking to you back in the first game. And then you press on, and it turns out there's a controller who just wanted to be left alone. Which makes sense, because controllers are psi-active monsters. But for the English version, They absolutely ruined this by giving him a default scary monster voice.
Leave here, man.
And then for the enhanced edition, they added captions in the message system. Which I'm all for, I like captions. But in this case, they straight up leave the sender's name as controller, which ruins the reveal completely, and also implies that the mutant is sitting there with a PDA sending this message to you. Anyway, he does go down in just one Gauss shot, which makes sense given the monster's proportions, but it is a little bit disappointing. I return to Yaniv to track down the other stronger mutants, and it's a good thing I do. There's a pseudo giant just walking around willy-nilly. I mean, not anymore. 3 shots from the kitchen gun get the job done nicely. After that, it's no wonder that the burrs living in the railroad tunnel also each go down in just one round. Though I do kill them before they get a chance to put up their cool gravity shield, so I don't know how Gauss Rifle bullets react to that. Same goes for the Bloodsuckers in the Plavnia anomaly, but it is necessary to patiently take them out, so that the Stalker named Trapper at Yaniv will give me his mission to murder a Chimera. He doesn't seem super impressed that I finished all of his missions before we ever talked, but still gives me his gun and a lot of money before eventually remembering to give me the Night Hunt quest. So when I at some point get to it, the beast is done in just 3 shots. This is a mandatory weapon. You cannot beat the game without getting it. And a Chimera just falls to it completely. This seriously was the moment when I started to question how much I actually do like Call of Pripyat. On one hand, the Gauss Rifle is one of the most interesting things in the entire Stalker universe. The game going out of its way to dig into the lore of it is pretty great. But having gone through the pacifist route and less conventional sides of the quests, it now feels so not interesting to just have a switch off button for whatever enemy I'm looking at. With no weapons at all, I had to think on my feet, bob and weave, figure stuff out. Every encounter was a risk, but the Gauss Rifle offers a pretty simple solution by comparison and is the same solution to any problem as most games give you. How is this game at all good if midway through it gives you this gun that solves any problem in just a couple clicks? Alright, because unlike most people, I stopped to grind up a shit ton of money to buy over 100 Gauss Rifle batteries. Which is simply amazing news for the 3 guys back at the barge who tried to scam me and apparently are still there and still hostile. I actually was just passing by to grab some artifacts and 2 of the guys made the mistake of letting me know that they're still around. The Gauss gun disintegrates him too fast for the 3rd of the bunch to even notice, and he just keeps sitting on that crate, chilling while hostile towards me. He does attack me later, unfortunately. Unfortunately for him! Nobody gets between me and my wretched artifacts. Sorry, wrenched artifacts, that's what this one is called. And I found 2 of them. While I'm on my revenge kick, I do come back to the bandit checkpoint and wipe out the gang that Vano owed money to. Doesn't get me my money back, and if anything wastes a bunch more because of the expensive ammo. Feels very satisfying though. This video has been brought to you by Revenge. Revenge. The most worthless of causes. There are actually some more non-bootleg Gauss runs to find around the map. Some of it even signposted, not just marked by some chalk in a damp basement somewhere. The river port at Pripyat might seem like a really pointless location, being mostly just a monolith outpost. But at the top of the building, you can find a unique NPC sitting on his knees meditating. In my case, his name is S.T.A.L.K.E.R Hardware. And true to his name, he's hiding some. His PDA contains stash coordinates for some spots with the army medkits and the Gauss rounds that the monolith factions have hidden across the zone in preparation for a larger invasion. Once again, a completely optional moment that's actually pretty cool if you do stumble onto it. One stash is right here at the port too, so that's convenient. I think this is the place that blasts caramel dancing in the heart of Chernobyl. And only by the time I amass 230 Gauss charges, I remember that I never actually told the colonel that I got the gun fixed. Or what it does for that matter. The mission critical information is that it doesn't shoot down helicopters. I mean, it does, but not 5 different ways and not by frying the electronics. The army is still as clueless as ever about what it is that actually got them into this situation, besides their own stupidity. Also, I now remember that I promised him to investigate the last position a group of his reported from before going no contact. And that was a few days and multiple viewers ago. So, I quietly waddled to where his boys last were heard screaming, and would you look at that, they're all dead. Well, not all of them. One ran away after doing the friendly fire special, and now is shooting everyone, including himself, at a nearby store. Turns out the man got taken over by a controller, and we all know how that goes. Gamepad disconnecting sound. The info from the recently departed also points towards a force of Monolith fighters hanging out at a nearby bookstore. So, Kowalski dispatches 2 of his own numbers to assist me in cleaning up the frankly unfair amount of enemies by comparison. And by his own numbers, I mean he sends Vano and Sokolov, and then they just stand there, getting eaten by Tushkana mice. What, did Strider not want to go mingle with his former co-workers? Actually, the Tushkana mice provide a bigger challenge than the actual Monolithians, because either are a one-shot kill, but I'm way worse at aiming at a pile of small and fast-moving rodents than a bunch of burly men. At the big hole in the back of the library, the Monolithians have one of their garbage antennas that they sit at and wobble their heads at. But this time, I don't get a good look at them, because Vano and Sokolov execute the crap out of everyone here the second I open the door. Didn't get your fill of violence from killing Zulu, did you guys? Once that's done with, I just have to investigate the X8 lab and the basement of the Jubilei apartment complex. Of course, the elevator is out of power, so first I will have to deal with 2 stories of zombies and then 2 more stories of Monolithians. What's interesting is that the bubble suit Monolith members seem to be more durable than the rest, being able to absorb at least 2 shots from the Gauss Rifle before dying. Which makes sense given that we're on the master difficulty, believe it or not. I feel like this game overall is lighter on the exoskeleton Monolith members compared to Stalker 1 or 2 specifically. The spare generator at the top floor seems to actually be connected to electric anomalies on the roof. That's kinda fun. I also get free hall artifacts from this place for all the good that does me 10 minutes before the game ends. Helpfully, once you are at the tippy top, you can descend down the elevator shaft back to the first floor, instead of trying to deal with all the enemies you've not killed, but backwards. The lab itself is a convoluted intestines of rooms and corridors, but for the purposes of this playthrough, we don't actually have to look through it at all. It's another concrete factory situation, so I just grab the first documents down there and leave immediately without looking for all the other ones. On the way back, Colonel Kowalski calls me and tells me that he wants to have a personal conversation, even though I don't feel like that about him at all. Meaning we're basically in the end game and we only have like a mission and a half left. Yeah, I didn't do anything to get the one-shot quest. I never did the S.T.A.L.K.E.R mission, so sorry, we'll not be doing that. Somehow this is all Duty's fault. Anyway, Kowalski tells me about his romantic life.
I'm getting more dick every minute.
And sends me to investigate another squad of his that disappeared, and at this point, it really feels like he's just feeding army squads to Pripyat. He does emphasize to me that I gotta find his boys. And I mean, technically I do find them, they're already dead. But at least the detonator survived. So I take the detonator to the nearby kindergarten and use it to breach the entrance. There are no actual children for me to blow up in here. The daycare is a host to another one of the Monolith antennas, and is infested with poltergeists. Shooting them really feels like a waste of ammo, since they don't have anything to really toss at you in this place, and are therefore bordering on harmless. Oh hey, they have one of those exercise ladders. And you can't actually climb it, even though there are normal ladders in the game. 0 out of 10, absolutely unplayable, enhanced edition my ass. Eventually, I break through the antenna and into the kitchen, where I find the doctor from the military base stuck in the refrigerator. His powerful mind then teleports us back to the laundromat, ending the mission, but immediately starting the next one. I still have free range of Pripyat by this point, but Gary has left to resupply on Yanov, meaning I'm stuck here until I get rid of my brothers-in-arms one way or another. So might as well call them a helicopter evac. But first, the radio boy tells me to investigate an incoming signal they've detected that's rapidly approaching. Actually chasing the thing down, I find nothing and no one, but once I come back to the base, the source reveals itself. Turns out, it's S.T.A.L.K.E.R of all people.
My name is S.T.A.L.K.E.R.
This was quite the reveal back in the day. I remember playing this for the first time, being quite shocked that he's still alive, that the true ending of Stalker 1 is now canon, and that he actually has a 3D model with like a mildly accurate face. They sculpted his likeness really well actually. With his wisdom, the gang finally figures out that the reason why their helicopters got explodificated is that they went into the zone after an mission with outdated anomaly maps. The player can actually put that together on their own, if they just listen to what S.T.A.L.K.E.R says when examining the damage to the helicopters. It does match up with multiple very familiar anomaly types. It's just that the player will also get thrown off by thinking that nobody could be that freaking stupid. So all they have to do is wait out an emission, request a fresh lift from the HQ, and make it to the evacuation point alive. The last one is the mission itself. The gang is here and ready to get rescued, except for Sokolov, who seems to not be willing to leave the Landromat at all. My guy, I'll get you the new trousers from the mainland, we gotta go, 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 go! On this go-around, I seem to have picked the worst possible time to do this too. It's very dark, so I can only really discern the enemies by like muzzle flashes. The low-resolution night vision helmet that I never upgraded also doesn't help, and I just don't like using it for these YouTube videos because YouTube compression completely annihilates the green screen. So after getting abandoned along with Sokolov, I decide to just follow the route to the choppers and not bother helping the tag-along characters at all. I still get the task to revive the medic, which was actually a surprise because I thought that he's dead already. But since Kowalski doesn't look super bothered about him either, I just pass on that. By the time I catch up to him and S.T.A.L.K.E.R, they're already fighting the monolith forces around the evacuation spot. I try to contribute, but honestly, even to this day I'm not sure what the actual conditions for the evacuation cutscene are. So I half-heartedly shoo away the Monolithians one at a time, until suddenly I've won the game. Well, winning is not exactly what happens here. Because I ignored so many side quests and half-assed multiple main ones, the ending slides are mostly somber. S.T.A.L.K.E.R and Sokolov survived, Kowalski apparently didn't, along with basically his entire squad actually. So as far as the playthrough is concerned, Degtyaryov only rescued one guy out of the whole bunch, though admittedly he brought S.T.A.L.K.E.R, who's worth 20 men. A funny bit is that because I did basically zero work for the scientists, the S.T.A.L.K.E.R research group was never formed, so S.T.A.L.K.E.R just doesn't have anyone to back him up in Stalker 2. Which is okay, because Herman got sent back into the non-zone science, meaning Skiff never got to meet him either, and never got a scanner to actually recharge his artifact. And also the Gauss Rifle is said to never have entered mass production, specifically because of the high price of ammunition. To which I say, skill issue! I started this playthrough expecting the ammo to be the main problem, and honestly it never was, at least once I got my hands onto the gun itself. Cardan being able to conjure batteries for you out of thin air turns out to be pretty overpowered, even if the money is a bit of a barrier. I get the feeling that the Gauss gun was meant to be more of a BFG of the game, a powerful weapon with a rare enough ammo type that you save up for special occasions. And maybe for normal playthrough it really is, cause the players have more important things to use their money on, like the suit upgrades. But none of this even matters, since no, you cannot beat Stalker Call of Pripyat using only the Gauss Rifle. Damn you, hospital mission and your one mandatory murder in the entire game! I still would say this is something very much worth trying for yourself, since getting the Gauss Rifle pretty early into the playthrough trivializes a lot of the side quests in hilarious ways. Case in point, here's what clearing out the Bloodsucker lair looks like when you are goated with the sauce. As per usual, thank you so much for watching, like and subscribe, etc. And massive thank you goes out to the members of the channel who have decided to support it. It means the world to me, and I'm working on some new cool videos for you guys coming soon.